Hi gardener, welcome to my channel. Today I'm very excited because I am visiting the Reid Farm in Deland, Florida. I've been wanting to come here for many years. They have a massive food forest that you can tour. I'm hoping to get a lot of knowledge and ideas that I can apply back home in my gardens. Today, Mr. Lonny Reid is giving me a tour and he's going to be sharing with us his top 5 tips on how to get started building a food forest. Or if you have an existing food forest and just kind of want to take it up to the next level, I'm sure these tips can help you a lot.
My name is Lonny Reid. We started this place in 2014. This food forest, I'd say, is worth probably like 8 years. We sell a lot of plants, edibles, medicinals. We do food forest installations, consultations where I go to properties and I help people just kind of figure out what their property is capable of. I like helping people get going.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly you can grow your own food and get a nice food forest going just in 6 months time or less than 1 year, really. A lot of you ask me all the time if I do consultations and things like that. I do not, so I actually refer a lot of people to you guys. You're the closest people that I know here in Central Florida. So if you're looking for consultations, please contact the Reid Farm. I'm going to put all of their information below in the description. They're a great resource, or come and visit the Reid Farm. All right, so let's get started with this food forest tour. He's got a massive food forest. It's like 2 acres. It goes in this direction here. So we'll walk through it a little bit as he teaches us all on how to get started and just some of the essential basics of building a food forest.
You were talking about tips for growing a food forest. Find what likes your climate. I think that's probably number 1. Find what likes your climate. Forget about what you want.
That is true.
I want a lot of stuff. I want soursop. I love soursop.
Me too.
It's a delicious fruit. I'm probably never going to produce a soursop in this property.
It gets too cold here. So many edible things that you might want to grow, but they're not the best for your native climate, your native soil, and that kind of thing. So if you're deciding on building a food forest, it's really important that you do your research and try to just find as much native edibles as possible. You might be surprised with learning some new ones that you actually like to eat, and then you can plant and integrate that into your food forest.
Something else I look at when I'm looking at climate, if you look at the latitude lines where you're at on the earth, like basically take a globe, put your finger right where you are and just spin the globe. Look at the other areas of the world, north and south of the equator. With that same distance, it's going to be roughly our temperatures. And then we can get away with a lot of stuff.
I mean, my family's from the Dominican Republic, so I get a lot of inspiration from those crops that we grow there, but I also look at South America, Asia, Africa is another example, Australia, all the things that they can grow there, you can probably get away with growing here as well in the southern parts of the United States, subtropical and tropical areas.
Look at what they're growing there. They can grow in really terrible conditions because you're starting in Florida, you probably have pretty terrible soil conditions.
Yes.
We all do. So look at the stuff that'll grow in terrible soil conditions. And I think that helps a lot.
I think the number one thing that comes to mind is yucca. My family, we eat tons of yucca. We grow it a lot in our gardens back home. And that is, outside of the United States, probably the number 1 carbohydrate resource for Asia, Africa, South America, most of the other countries. It's just not in the United States where it's not very popular, but it should be. This is a massive Mysore raspberry bush. I have never seen one this big. If you didn't know, in warmer climates like here in Florida, we can't really grow raspberries. They prefer colder climates, but you can grow the Mysore raspberry. They're dark purple, black, like a blackberry, but have more of a raspberry-like flavor. This is a great option, like I said, for warm weather climates. It's perennial and it produces a ton.
We built this little trellis right next to it, and now it's just like this imposing force that has taken over this whole area. You get ripe fruit, you got fruit that's coming, you got new baby flowers nearly constantly. Like every day there's new flowers opening. I don't know when it's going to stop. This is the most productive year we've ever had.
All right, so tip number 2.
Find mulch. The way I found my mulch was I just made a lot of calls. I called every tree service in 10 to 15 miles of my location. I called them again and I called them again until someone showed up. And when someone showed up, I started to grease those guys real well. We got mangoes, they're eating some mangoes. We were making wine, I send those guys away with bottles of wine every time they came. And I tell you what, 10 years later, I still got the same guys delivering me mulch.
That's funny because the guys that just made the last 6 piles of mulch delivery, we gave them bunches of eggs. We exchanged phone numbers. So they said anytime they're in our area, they were gonna come by.
That's how you do it. This is mulch. There's nothing more there. That is just wood chips. That has been sitting here getting wet and getting driven on. That's raised bed soil right now. That's ready to go. All I need to do is nutrify it. It's not super rich with nutrients. But it is an amazing base. It will promote great root growth. It's just an awesome starter. And without it, I don't know that I ever could have done what I did.
Here's some pomegranate trees. Do you know what variety
This
that
is
one
Vietnamese red, and this is
Okay.
Vietnamese red. But this one has produced really well for us.
They produce fruit. Okay.
Yeah, that's a set fruit right there. They'll flower until they're satisfied with how many fruits they have.
Oh, really interesting, because a lot of people say you can't grow pomegranates in Florida.
I know, I hear that all the time.
It
And
just
then I walk
depends
them
on the
back here.
variety.
Yeah.
Variety selection is really important.
Well, humidity. It's a humidity.
The humidity. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people get this fungus. They get like these black streaks or something on the fruits. Yeah, these get big. These are like a softball.
Behind
Mulberry.
it is a mulberry.
Yeah.
Another great option.
This is the Thai everbearing or world's best. That's about what the fruits look like. That's about the right size. We have a bunch of mulberry trees on the property. For flavor, there's a few others I think that are better.
Okay.
But for production, nothing even comes close to beating this. It's called everbearing because you can fruit this tree 3 times a year should you be ambitious enough. If you strip every leaf off this tree, the tree thinks, oh, it's wintertime, signals dormancy. But then it goes, oh, wait, it's 90 degrees out. It's not wintertime. I need to put leaves on and grow. And when they put on leaves, they fruit. They fruit on new growth. So as soon as you strip this whole thing, it just blows out a whole other crop.
Okay.
You can get 3 a year out of it. This tree right here, though, this is a Florida native. This is Tice mulberry. This produces some of the best fruit ever.
Wow. I've been wanting to try this one for long time.
This one will change your life. The fruits are, it's just the quality, the flavor, are so zingy and
Wow.
so good. Look at this one. Look at this fat mulberry.
So this is a Florida native. Does it handle nematodes pretty well?
Yeah, no issues.
No issues with nematodes.
issues.
Okay.
I planted this out here a few years ago. I never watered it. It didn't get any compost. It literally got nothing, no care.
Man. It tastes like the best grape I've ever had.
This is one of my very, very favorites. Like black, beautiful berries. But those big fat berries are they're a showstopper because they're so heavy. They're the best, the absolute best.
Are these the biggest? Well, the Himalayan get longer, but not like thick like that. I
Pakistani
don't
get
think.
longer too, but yeah, they're not thick like this. White ube, see, there's one of the roots that came from underground. Probably another one, but these are the aerials that it drops.
The aerials grow on the vining portion, upper portion of the plant. They drop down, they take root, and then grow these massive roots underground.
Yep, there's one still up in the air that didn't make it down, but a lot of them dropped here.
What do they taste like?
Potatoes. Yeah, if you look right here, these are all aerials.
Wow.
If you're really looking for something like as prolific and productive as yucca, as growing cassava, this is the counterpart. This is a vine version of cassava, basically, when you're talking about producing calories, ease of growth, just producing big numbers. I could take that inside, skin it all off, it's potato. Treat it as a potato.
How long do these vines get?
Pretty long. They get massive.
Did you start these from seed or
Just from aerials.
Oh, you took the roots?
Yeah,
Okay.
just from bulbils, just from these guys. I plant them in the springtime, like in a big bucket, like a 20-gallon pot, and put it right at the base of something that it can climb. And then when the vines kind of brown out and get wiped by the cold, you just dump that pot over, and your giant harvest just comes pouring out. So they can be as big as 30 pounds, 40 pounds. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, we've pulled roots out of the ground that were huge. So having them in a pot that you can just tip over, it's just so much easier to harvest.
So tip number 3.
Grow your own mulch. This right here, this is all Mexican sunflower. Tithonia diversifolia. Just lay them on the ground, let it break down. It breaks down very, very quickly. It's very soft. It's a fast-growing plant, so that's what you want. We're looking for fast-growing plants, create us a lot of biomass. This right here was cut down just about a month ago, and it's already 7 foot tall again. A weed eater with a nice chopping blade is a good tool to have, and just stay on it. But you can create so much biomass. It's a good portion of the success I had is because of this plant. Chop it and walk away.
So you have to grow your own mulch sometimes, especially if you have a hard time getting, big deliveries of like wood chips or something. Another option is growing your own mulch. There's lots of different plants that you can do this with.
This is red Napier grass, also very aggressive, very fast grower. Don't plant this if you're not active in your garden because it will outrun you. Trunks and the bases of these plants will get big and huge, and you'll need a machine or a bunch of shovels to dig it out because it gets big. A weed eater and a little bit of consistency, and it's easy. I can chop that all down in 3 minutes with a weed eater. Just do it once a month during the growing season, and this is an awesome biomass producer. Here's my cold sensitive area where I have all my cold sensitive trees, and I have a unique method. What I do is I set them up in such a way that they're right next to each other. This is lychee. So I have them right here, and I've got my next two right here. I got sapodilla, and I've got orange sherbet mango. So right here in the center, I'll put a big burn barrel. And then I've got Mexican sunflower everywhere, everywhere. This whole thing ends up being encircled by a 20, 30 foot tall walls of Mexican sunflower, and they start to arch over top and kind of really snuggle these plants in real good. And then when I light the burn barrel, it doesn't have to be huge, it just has to be there. I can keep the fire nice and low as long as it's cindering and pushing off heat. The Mexican sunflower catches it all, and these plants just sit here. Beautiful
Orinoco, is that the plantain one?
Kind of like that.
Rolo?
Burro?
Yeah.
Burro banana.
Okay,
yeah.
so same one.
We always have the tall, like that's tall Orinoco right there. The tall burro Orinoco. That's the most common one you see in Florida. Here's a Brogdon avocado, just set herself a nice bunch of fruit.
I have a Brogdon, and there's debate because people say when you harvest avocados, you harvest them green off the plant, let them ripen up on the counter.
Way.
Like, they fight me about it, and I'm like, I have a Brogdon that I harvest when it's ripe on the tree.
When they start to get black on them.
Yes.
Yeah, I call bunk on that.
Yeah.
There are plants I'm sure you will harvest, but people say the same thing about bananas too, though. When they're yellow, they're ripe.
I've harvested my bunches before when they are just starting to blush yellow because critters or something might get into it. I take the whole bunch, bring it indoors, and it'll finish ripening up.
But then you know, because you started to see yellow. Yeah, you don't have to get the whole rack yellow, but when you see yellow, it's the indication that that bunch is done maturing.
All right, so what's your tip number 4 for building a food forest?
Visit lots of different food forests. See how other people are doing things. Look at their ideas. See how you can steal them. Make them your own. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. Their conditions, things that they have access to, everyone's going to be different.
So here we have the real Blue Java banana. Can you talk to us a little bit about this, and how do you tell the difference between this and the regular ice cream banana?
So if you look right underneath here, see how that fusion is basically the knuckle of the banana is right on the main stem, and then it goes out into the fruit. The fruits are very silver. They're not blue necessarily. That's about as blue as they get, but it's this knuckle fusion down here at the bottom, and they're very much individual fruits. If you notice right there, and then we'll walk over here, and I have the other ones, the ice cream fruited on the other side, and you can see there's a very big difference. There's also this cylindrical formation where it's kind of like rolls around. The ice creams don't do that.
And the flavor, how does it compare Blue Java versus ice cream?
I think these are better.
All right.
I think Blue Java is better. Ice creams are smaller, really a Namwa. They're a good banana, but they're smaller. The texture is really nice on Namwa, on ice cream. These I thought were just amazing. The last batch we had, they got bigger, certainly. They had a nice tang to them, a great flavor, a good texture. When they got overripe, they softened, whereas the Namwas, the flesh didn't soften the same way. To compare the two, I'd absolutely eat these over the ice cream, definitely. But these don't tissue culture well, so they can't be really produced in mass amounts. Like, you gotta get a hand dog pup or you're not gonna find them.
So this is the one that they say is called ice cream banana, but it's actually a type of Namwa.
If you look right at the base, right there, you see there's that big fat fusion. I can't quite reach there, but there's a very large section where the bananas are attached to this other piece of flesh that is then attached to the stem. And you see they're straight up. They're not growing in any kind of circular pattern at all. So it's a very different looking fruit.
We're looking at some papayas right now. This is also a great option for food forest because they just produce so much. This is a red lady papaya, one of the better eating quality if you're one of those people like me who didn't like papayas.
Yeah, they taste like vomit.
Right, I have to agree with that. But red lady tastes really good. It's very different. You have to be careful with your variety selection. And in Thailand, they use the green unripe papayas as a vegetable. And then if you allow them to ripen all the way up to their orange stage, then they consider it a fruit. So very versatile, lots of things you can make with papaya.
Each one is a good few pounds. We'll shred them into salads like julienne. We'll chunk them into soup as a root, similar to a root vegetable. They hold their texture really well as green. So when you chunk them into a soup, they're great. It's such an easy thing to grow. You're in Central Florida, anywhere in Florida, you're trying to grow a food forest, you don't have papayas, you're doing yourself a disservice.
All right, so tip number 5.
I just said I need to do something every day. And I would go out and cut one plant. I would take one cutting and I would go out under the barn and I would get a little pot of soil, a 4-inch pot, and I'd poke that one cutting in there and I'd water it and I'd go put it away. I did something that day. I made a plant that day. I made a cutting. I made an attempt. any progress is progress.
A lot of people ask me all the time, because I have a full-time job and I run my garden, my aunt's garden, the animals I have, like how do I accomplish with the time that I have all these things and not get overwhelmed? And one of the things that I tell them is exactly what you're saying, just a little bit of time every day, whether it just be 15, 10 minutes accomplishing something, whether it be planting something or some kind of garden task. Just every day, you'd be surprised how quickly all of that amounts together and you've accomplished so much.
To think of a final goal, like what are you trying to get to? I just want to feed myself. I want to eat as much stuff as I possibly can. I want as much variety as I possibly can, because each different thing that I grow will have a different nutrient profile.
Talk to us a little bit about the classes and courses that you offer here on the farm.
We have an intensive we call it Living Off the Land, where it was a 12-week course. It was every other weekend, 6 solid weekends where people come here. We actually have one couple that brings their camper and they stay here. We offer tent camping, and there's lots of places to crash. We even have a little tiny house back here that we can work out, just so people can come here and spend time with us and learn what we do. Learn how to plant, how to do this, and how to harvest it, and how to use it. We also do individual classes that are like on Saturdays and Sundays, where we just do a food forest basics, where you just walk with me. It's about 2 hours, and we just kind of tour the farm. We look at stuff, and we talk about how to get started. We do a planting, pruning, propagation class, where we do cuttings and air layers and grafting and stuff like that, where people get to learn by seeing it and really, watching and being hands-on. We also have Tucka, who is doing bee classes now. We've started those. My wife also is a yoga instructor, and she does classes right here on the farm. We've got a studio inside, and we actually built a pavilion out back here, where I have a big piece of mat to go in there that we will be doing some outdoor classes.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this tour of this massive food forest property. I was so impressed, and I have so many ideas that I want to implement back at home, and I'm going to get a bunch of new plants for my garden. So if you need some inspiration, or you're wondering like where to begin, this is a great resource. Definitely visit the Reid Farm and just get all the information you can. Thank you so much for coming along with us today. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. I had a great time visiting. Thank you for having me.